You don't have to join, you know. Suddenly, I'm startled by a voice from behind. It's Emily. Her words instantly send my high spirits plummeting, like watching a thermometer drop. Yes, I have a hard time dealing with her. My name is Mike, 25 years old. I work at a local beverage company. I joined this company because of an incident that happened back in elementary school. It was during a 6th grade social studies class, where we visited a distillery. Henry Williams, known as the master brewer, was the highest authority in brewing. He himself had guided us through the brewery. He explained that the most important element in distilling is water. The staff around us started to move. They began lining up paper cups filled with water in front of us, 4 cups each. 3 of these contained tap water, while 1 had groundwater. Apparently, it was a game to identify the cup with groundwater. My classmates were saying things like, "I can tell, and aren't they all the same?" Everyone raised their paper with their answer. I chose number 4. No one else had picked number 4. Number 4 is correct, and only one person got it right, said Henry, and everyone turned to look at me. As everyone exclaimed in awe and clapped, I tried to play it cool, saying, "Just a lucky guess." Henry suggested another round to see if it was really just luck, preparing new cups, all with the same groundwater. This time, it was the same groundwater. The task was to choose the same water as before. I got this one right too. Apparently, even those working in the distillery often get it wrong. After seeing my skill, Henry said, "You might just have a God-given talent for this," and praised me. Having rarely been praised before, I was over the moon. This event was covered in the school newspaper and the company's internal bulletin, making me somewhat famous in school in the local area. I had been often teased before due to coming from a poor single-parent household. But this changed things. I stopped being teased and became more outgoing, joining in with everyone else. Time passed, and I was in my 3rd year of middle school, facing decisions about my future. Coming from a poor family, I planned to work right after high school, so I aimed for a vocational high school. Then a turning point came in my life. My younger brother was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a type of cancer. While we weren't too worried about the costs of surgery and treatment, but hospitalization would be expensive. Moreover, my brother was still in elementary school and needed a lot of care, which was likely to affect my mom's job. So, I decided to give up on furthering my education. My mom kept telling me to continue my studies until the very end, but I didn't want to add more burden to her already full plate. When I told her that we should support my brother's treatment together, she burst into tears and apologized. My mom raised us by herself, and I had never heard her complain once. That's why I had always seen her as a strong figure, and her tears left me bewildered. After explaining my situation to my teacher, my homeroom teacher introduced me to a company that was open to hiring me. Among them was the beverage company where I now work. When I found this company, I remembered my visit to the distillery. I thought maybe I could use my talent here. I quickly wrote my resume and applied for the job. I was so nervous during the interview, I wasn't even sure if I was speaking clearly. That's understandable, considering I was being intensely scrutinized by people over 30 years my senior. I told them how I wanted to cure my brother and ease my mother's load, but I wasn't confident that I had conveyed my message properly. The interview ended without any sense of accomplishment. I remember trudging home, thinking I had blown it. A week passed with no word, and I was about to give up hope. That's when I received a letter from the beverage company. Nervously opening it, I found to my surprise that it was a job offer. And that's how I ended up working at the local beverage company. Initially, I was assigned to the factory line. This factory produced soft drinks like soda. My first job was to transport ingredients like sugar and load them into machines. Dealing with new people and the tough work was overwhelming at first. When I first joined the company, I was completely overwhelmed. But the older colleagues treated me like a younger brother and took good care of me. They taught me everything from scratch and instilled in me a proper work ethic. I worked hard, driven by the desire to cure my brother as soon as possible. Thanks to my efforts, I steadily gained skills, and by my third year, I was entrusted with the final inspection. In final inspection, I had to be mindful not only of the appearance, such as color, but also of smell and taste. I also had to ensure there were no impurities and that the product met taste and flavor standards. Final inspection is like the last line of defense. If anything gets overlooked here, it could lead to a trust issue for the company. In the worst case, we might have to recall all products. That meant I couldn't let my guard down for a second. To deliver better products, I put in even more effort than before. And here, I really began to flourish. One day, while conducting the usual final check on the products, I noticed a slightly different taste. A subtly different taste lingered, unlike the usual. I ran it through the inspection machine, but no abnormal values were detected. I asked another inspector, but he didn't notice any difference. Still not convinced, I consulted my supervisor, Ted. Ted also felt something was off. We stopped the production line and checked everything one by one. It turned out that a mixer motor was broken, causing the ingredients not to blend properly. Ted praised me for noticing the difference in taste. I was so pleased with the compliment, I became even more immersed in my work. After that, I kept detecting subtle deteriorations in ingredients and anomalies in taste. My exceptional sense of taste became well known in other departments. The materials department, responsible for arranging ingredients, would check them thoroughly on days when I was in charge of final inspection. Word of my talent reached the ears of the head of the product development department, and I was transferred there. The product development department is one of the most important divisions in the company, responsible for creating new products. Naturally, it's filled with people who take great pride in their work. The department head, Emily, was a prime example of this. It's a given that everyone here has a college degree. A high school diploma is barely acceptable, and a middle school education is completely out of the question. On my first day after the transfer, I introduced myself, but it seemed like I wasn't exactly welcomed. Well, I guess that's understandable. However, Emily dropped a bombshell. Just do some work, but don't get in the way. She dismissed me as just a middle school graduate with a sensitive palate, claiming that without academic knowledge, I wouldn't be of any use. Her words made my blood boil. There are people in this world who, for financial reasons, couldn't pursue further education even if they wanted to. I'm one of them. How dare she speak so carelessly, without understanding someone else's struggles? I wanted to lash out in anger, but causing trouble on my first day wouldn't be wise. Pretending not to be bothered, I clenched my fist and held back. You can taste as much as you want, but don't expect me to take your opinion seriously, she said and left the room. The others around me snickered and went back to their work. I'll show them one day, I firmly resolved in my heart. From that day on, I arrived at the office earlier than anyone else and stayed later than anyone else, working. Though, as I wasn't entrusted with any real responsibilities, I spent my time researching and learning about the job. There was plenty to study, so I was never idle. However, it was frustrating not being able to get any help with things I didn't understand. Since I wasn't assigned any actual work, I couldn't stay for overtime in an official capacity. So I clocked out at the regular time and then returned to my desk to study. As the others left for the day, they'd comment loud enough for me to hear, wondering why I stayed when I had no work. I was used to it by now. I just greeted them casually and got back to my studies. This routine continued for about 3 months. Perhaps realizing it was getting out of hand, Emily gradually started to assign me some tasks. They were mostly menial jobs, but, well, it's better than nothing. I was grateful to be given even small tasks. However, the amount of menial work I was given was excessive. A senior colleague tried to help me, seeing my struggle. But Emily stopped them, saying that helping me would only make me complacent. Reluctantly, I managed all the tasks alone. One morning, during a company meeting, an announcement was made about a grand party to celebrate the company's 20th anniversary. It was my first time experiencing something like this, and I was excited. We were told to confirm our attendance via email. I went back to my desk to start working, and that's when Emily approached me. "You don't have to join. There's no need for someone who hasn't contributed to the company, especially a middle school graduate, to come." With those words, she walked away. In GERD, I marked the "will not attend" box on the attendance confirmation email. And so, I repeatedly hit the enter key to send the email. My job still mainly consisted of menial tasks, and it felt like the workload was increasing. Since weekdays weren't enough, I started coming in on weekend to finish my work. While I was stapling documents for a meeting, President Williams walked in. "Aunt Mike, I heard some noise and thought no one would be here," he said, and sat down next to me. He asked me how my job was going, and I ended up telling him about everything from my reasons for joining the company to my time working in the factory. I had rarely spoken with President Williams before, so I was initially nervous. But as he listened with a smile, my tension gradually eased. Getting carried away, I even talked about my elementary school visit to the brewery. Then he said, "You're the kid from back then," with surprise. But I couldn't think of what he was referring to. While I was puzzled, he invited me to have lunch with him. Looking at the clock, it was indeed lunchtime. As I hesitated, he encouraged me, saying, "Don't hold back." He also added that he'd like to continue our conversation. So, I took him up on his offer. While eating lunch at a nearby diner, President Williams continued our earlier conversation. "I was the head brewer back then," he revealed. Turns out, he was the same person who had guided me during my brewery visit. I almost choked on my fried chicken in shock. I never imagined that the head brewer from back then would be President Williams. I had seen him several times but never made the connection. "Thank you so much for that time. Being praised by you changed me, and I found my calling. I expressed my gratitude for changing my life." "It's too early for thanks. You've still got a lot more to accomplish." After saying that, President Williams asked about my recent work. Not wanting to mention Emily, I talked about the new things I was learning. Hearing this, he gave me an encouraging look and told me to keep it up. Feeling like my efforts were recognized, my spirits soared. I never expected such a turn of events from an unexpected lunch with President Williams, but I returned to the office feeling warm and uplifted. However, back at the office, he turned serious and said, about the documents from earlier. It seemed he was curious about the meeting materials I was working on. When I showed him, he looked concerned. The documents were results from an internal survey on new product ideas. Several options were listed, but none had good reviews. He had been worried because no promising new products had been coming up. I had also tasted those new products. So, I inadvertently blurted out my concerns and suggestions for improvement. President Williams's expression changed suddenly. "Why didn't you report this?" he asked me. I fumbled, saying it was because I was new and didn't want to overstep my bounds. I couldn't say that I was being sidelined. President Williams seemed like he wanted to say more, but then just nodded in understanding. Glancing at the clock, it was past 2 p.m. Remembering the work I had left, I started to get restless. Noticing my state, he apologized for keeping me so long, expressed his hope for me to enjoy the upcoming anniversary party, and left with a smile. On the day of the anniversary party, although I had initially informed them of my absence, President Williams's personal invitation made it impossible for me to not attend. I tried to enjoy the event discreetly in a corner, making sure not to be noticed by Emily. I reunited with the factory workers after a long time. They all seemed well. While we were reminiscing, Emily approached briskly. The factory workers quickly dispersed. I thought I should escape too, but it was too late. Emily called me aside and took me towards the entrance. "You weren't supposed to come, right? Why are you here? It's open to everyone, and everyone has the right to participate." I finally retorted back to Emily's unreasonable remarks, feeling irked. Surprised by my response, Emily first stared at me in disbelief, then said, "You have no education, contribute nothing to the company, and yet you just take what you get. That's audacious." I couldn't hold back any longer, given her harsh words. "I always admired your skills and talent, Emily. I respected you and wanted to be like you. But in every other aspect, honestly, I don't want to be anything like you." Although I struggled with her, I recognized her experience and skills as a manager. That's why I had been silently doing my job until now, but I reached my limit. Her face turned red with anger, possibly feeling looked down upon. At that moment, someone called out from behind, "Enjoying yourselves, though it doesn't seem like a fun conversation." Turning around, I saw President Williams, surprising both Emily and me. He calmly advised Emily, "You're young, talented, and hardworking, but don't let that turn into arrogance. A condescending attitude towards your subordinates is something you should change." "Yes," Emily responded, looking down, ashamed. Then President Williams announced something astonishing. "I'm thinking of assigning Mike as the development leader for the new product we're planning." I was shocked. Me, as the leader? I had barely been involved in development, and now I was suddenly being made a leader. I was happy with his words but also anxious about my capability. I was also concerned about Emily. She had always been the development leader. Glancing at her, I saw her looking shocked in a different way. Raising her head sadly, she asked, "Am I not suitable as a leader anymore?" "Don't get me wrong. It's not a demotion. I want you in a higher position. As a manager, it's your role to nurture new leaders. And Mike has become indispensable in the product development department." As I struggled to grasp his intent, President Williams recounted what happened at the new product meeting. Emily had explained that the internal evaluation of the new product wasn't high. After that, improvement ideas were discussed, but nothing substantial came up. When everyone was at a loss, President Williams made a revolutionary suggestion. Everyone agreed, and the plan for the product moved forward. In fact, the idea was something I had mentioned to him at the diner. Hearing this, Emily looked utterly surprised. President Williams continued, revealing that alongside my duties, I was also studying to become a sensory inspector. He mentioned the episode from my childhood when I distinguished between different types of water at the brewery. He also mentioned my weekend work, preparing meeting materials. Hearing all this, Emily appeared embarrassed. "I hope you will support him. I'm counting on you," President Williams said before leaving. His words warmed my heart. I hadn't expected him to value me so highly. Feeling emotional, I smiled to hide my nearly spilling tears. Afterward, I was appointed as the development leader and started working on the new product. Things have been different now, with a dizzying level of busyness. After that incident, Emily apologized to me for her past behavior. Now, she's a reliable supervisor who offers guidance on various matters. Turns out, she also grew up in a single-parent household. She worked part-time in high school to help with household expenses and paid her way through college, graduating from a prestigious university. Her experience led her to believe that those who were poor but didn't attend a good university simply didn't put in the effort. But now she understands that there are people like me who, despite their efforts, had to give up on further education due to circumstances beyond their control. She's vowed to stop judging people solely by their educational background. Emily is a talented individual who was promoted to the manager of the development department at a young age. Her guidance is strict, but I learn a lot every day. Also, my efforts paid off as I passed the sensory inspector exam. Having this qualification seems to have added credibility to my words. Initially, as a new leader, I faced a lot of resistance. But whether it's because I passed the sensory inspector exam or something else, now everyone is cooperative and we're working well together. I'm grateful to President Williams for showing me my path twice, and I want to continue to work hard to repay him in the future.